You're listening to Keith Engle, the host of TGI Sports Talk on the National Streaming Sports Roku channel.
Good evening, everybody. Keith Engle here with TGI Sports Talk's College Football Huddle. We welcome everybody who just watched the national. Excuse me. I'm going to screw it up. I'm sorry. The national professional sports show on Roku on the National Streaming Sports Network here from 6 to 7, where I guest every night before this show. So we welcome everybody who's watched there on Roku. Welcome to this show. I want to welcome everybody also on our Facebook and YouTube pages, the TGI Sports Talk pages. All of these shows are brought to you in part by BetUs.com. I still got music playing, right? There we go. BetUs.com. You can go to NESSP.info, which is the National Streaming Sports website, and you can click the link, or I think there's a bar scanner, which I should put up here. I know Mac does it, and help you guys get there. But a lot of stuff going on, college football, which we'll talk about tonight, pro football, baseball playoffs. There's a lot of things you can bet, game action, over-unders, parlays, prop bets, whatever you want to do, you can do there. Just bet with your head, not over it. Be smart. Quick shout out also to Ralph Williams at RW Media. Ralph does some great stuff there in Pittsburgh on both Facebook and YouTube, and he's back on the radio. We'll be on there on the 15th on the Sports Corner from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern time. He does Tuesdays with Smoke and Jim Frazier. That's Eastern time, by the way. I'll be on the 15th. I think 4:30 to 5 I'll be on. And you may see more of Ralph on some of these channels, as he has asked me about it, and we haven't had a chance to chat. So we'll see how that goes. Also want to thank the groups that allow me to share always. John Gonzalez at the Sports Authorities, and these are just a few of them, by the way. They're the key players. No disrespect to any of the other groups. You guys are great, and I appreciate all the support and views that we get from you guys. We love it. And any of you who want me to mention you, please just reach out, pop in the show. We give you a mention here, and we'll be happy to kind of rotate these things out. But John does a great job with the Sports Authorities. Flo and the gang over at Bottom Line Sports on his podcast. He allows me to share to his page. Let's Talk Sports, where Flo and the Bottom Line Sports gang do their podcast live on YouTube. Let's Talk Sports has some great content. Check them out. Excuse me. And Ken Krause over at Golf Bud Sports of All Sorts. I know I'm missing somebody tonight. We won't mention our baseball affiliates tonight. And DDH, thumbs up. Quick program note. This week I've got a wedding. So I don't know what's going to happen. There'll be no one-on-one with Keith Engle. We're going to do a encore presentation at 9 a.m. I'll be on with Mac and Jack in the morning, but no 9 a.m. I've been thinking about doing the MLB update at 9 o'clock Friday morning, but I know a lot of the guys that participate in that aren't around at that time, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I can't do it late because I've got the wedding, and I am officiating this wedding, so I cannot be late. So we'll let you guys know. I'll decide tomorrow afternoon what I'm going to do. We may do the MLB update tomorrow night. We don't want to skip it because a lot of stuff to talk about in Major League Baseball, as there is in college tonight. I want to thank last week's guest on 101, by the way, Byron Williams. We had a great conversation with him about his college career and his professional career and his NFL Players Association stuff right now. So let's see who we got with us before we dive in. We got a lot to talk about. Danny Fuller, how are you, Danny, out in California? Who the Bruins got this week? Good evening. I didn't even say hello to Rick. Hello, Rick. Good to see you, buddy. Rick didn't say hello to me, but he said hello to Danny. So hello, Rick. How are you, buddy? Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're feeling okay. Guys, we got a lot to talk about tonight. Last week was quite the roller coaster, right? Bama goes down. Danny, I told you Sunday. I think I may be wrong and misremembering. I can go back and watch the videotape if I have to, because unlike Mike Francesa, the big shot from WFEN days, we don't lose the tapes here. They stay here. And we admit to our mistakes. But I said Alabama would fall to probably 7. I think I said 7. And yes, behind Georgia. Does it seem fair? They lost to Georgia, but no, you lose to Vanderbilt, you're not dropping 2 spots. It's very funny. Nick Saban, just a week before, had said on the McAvoy show that every road game is tough. I'm paraphrasing, I think, and maybe Danny can help me out, or one of you guys can help me out, that you can lose. Every game on the road is tough in the SEC, except when you go to Vanderbilt. Bad timing, Nick. Hello, Alan. Great to have you with us. Horns down for Alan as his Sooners, his Oklahoma Sooners, 18th ranked, are going to get the back-end #1 Texas Longhorns this week in one of the classic matchups, big matchups this week. The Red River rivalry continues. I'm going to like Texas in this game. I don't know what the line is. We'll see what the line is when I take a look at it. We'll also do our picks, or I'll do my picks live for you guys in the pool and review the standings. There's some big games. We'll talk about the later. Ohio State, Oregon, Utah, Arizona State. Just getting back to last week, some other stuff that went on. By the way, I like Army and Navy, both 5-0, first time since 1945. They're creeping closer to the rankings, by the way. USC gets beat last week. Boise State just rolls, and they're running back, what's his name? I'm going to say it wrong. JD? Where's his name? Maybe I can say it if I see it. Maybe if I see it, I can say it. Ashton Jeanty. I'm not sure if that's right. He's just rolling, and he's moving up the Heisman rankings as well. So we'll talk a little bit about that if you like today. Indiana 6-0. Signetti, their coach, he said at his introductory press conference, they asked him about his plans, and he said, I win. Look me up. Google me, he said, actually. You got to admire the chutzpah, right? Miami rallies. I know that we don't like the convicts out there, but Miami's 5-0, but it's been an ugly ride here, and we'll see how long that can last. I believe they've got a bye this week. Oklahoma State dead, killed me last week. We did have a winning week wagering, by the way. That's 3 straight. All I want, 4 out of 6 every week. Make $90 a week. At the end of 17 weeks, that's a decent amount of money. What else went on last week we want to talk about? Oregon rolled. Michigan State, Syracuse with a nice win over at Vegas. Vegas drops out of the top 25. Ohio State, again, just rolls again. Well, that Oregon-Ohio State game is going to be interesting. Oregon hasn't played great football. Ohio State's got to travel across the country to go to where they play. Escaping me. I know where it is. It's Nikeville. What else? A lot of good stuff last week, man. SMU, they've got 1 loss. Tulane rolls. The group of 5. The group of 5 activity is going to be really close. Boise's really good. Vegas now takes a step back. Army, Navy in play to possibly be in that 12-team playoff. What else? Iowa's offense just horrible, right? Against Ohio State. Jesus, can't put more than 7 points on the board. Indiana 6-0. I mean, I know they haven't played great teams, but they're a great story, right? All road games are tough in the SEC except Vanderbilt. There you go. That's sort of what I said. Danny said it much clearer than I did. Nick's lucky he wasn't coaching. I don't know if he would have said that if he was coaching, right? Rat poison. It sounds a little suspiciously like rat poison. It's got to be closer than people think. Well, let me ask you, Alan. I got to ask you this. We're going to get on this because Alan's here with us, and while he's here, I want to give him the opportunity to speak his mind. Oklahoma's 4-1. They're ranked tied for 19th. here's your victories. Here's your victories. Temple, you beat the bejesus out of them, as you should, because they're one of the worst teams in the country. Another team that's not very good, Houston, you barely beat at home by 4. It's a bad Houston team. They got Tulane at home. Now, Tulane's not a terrible football team, but you keep them in the game until late in the fourth quarter. Tennessee rolls you. I know you're going to tell me you only lost by 10, but they dominated you in that game. You're never in that game. In my mind, you're never in that game. And then you go to Auburn. Not a terrible victory, 27-21, but Auburn probably should have beat you. I don't see any reason to feel, and you can give me the reasons you think. I mean, Arnold hasn't stepped up at quarterback. The defense hasn't been terrible, but this offense, I think, leaves a little to be desired. What is this game? What's the line on this game? Where is it? Let's find out. And then I'll give Alan a chance to speak his mind here, because that's what we do. We're fair on this show. Can't find it now. When are they playing? Oh, there we go. Texas 14.5. Now, where is this game? Where they play this game anyway? The Cotton Bowl. So it's really a home game for Texas, right? 14.5, 50. I kind of like the over, but you're going to take the 14.5. I get that. But again, Alan, this is about your team. Do they have a realistic shot to win this game? No. You don't really think that. This isn't a good team. I still think they'll be 8-4. What are they, 4-1 now? I still think they'll be 8-4. Not in a playoff. Not in a playoff hunt now. We'll take a look at who likely would be in if we started today. We have to make some assumptions about conference championship game winners and such. I kind of think you're right, Danny. Dylan Gabriel hasn't stepped up to be, the second coming of Bo Nix up there. Dan Lanning's a really good football coach, but there's something missing from this Oregon team. I do think they probably will finish second, and I think they may get another shot at Ohio State on a neutral field where they played at Indianapolis, I think, the Big Ten championship. Very good chance Oregon is that second place team. But I think they're going to get blasted in both the games. I just think Ohio State's loaded. I mean, really loaded. They've got a really good experienced quarterback. Their running game is good. They've got a plethora of wide receivers. They lose great wide receivers every year, and just guys step up. Right? I mean, how many guys have gone to the NFL the last few years? Olave, Harrison, the kid up in Seattle with 6 names. Thank you, by the way, for that. I didn't say thank you, I don't think, here, Danny. Thank you for that. You're such a good man. Uncalled for, but always, not necessary, I shouldn't say not uncalled for, but always appreciated. Good day to everyone. CA's here with us. Good to have you with us. Carlin is with us. Texas by 3, so there you go. What's that upset? What game you watching there? What is it? What's your profile picture for there? I can't quite make out who is. Looks like Big Papi actually on the right, but Houston is horrible. Well, they played better the last couple of weeks, but still, that's not a good football team. Willie Fritz is a great coach, and they probably will be better. But Houston is not a good football team at the moment, and Oklahoma has got no business beating them by a couple of points at home. If they want me to take them seriously. Holding them to 25 is impressive. You're setting the bar a little low. It's about wins and losses, Alan. Like Hawkins at quarterback better than Arnold, and we may get a little healthier. Well, it sounds like hope, and hope is not a plan. Just want to point that out, Alan. I love Alan. Alan is the best. Alan does some great stuff, by the way, on Let's Talk Sports as well. And Alan, please plug any of your show, plug all your shows. Put a little comment up with the. I know you're one of the busiest guys on the network, so you may not be able to get all your shows in, but any you want to seriously plug, make sure you put them in the comments so we can get them up for you. Alan does some great stuff on Let's Talk Sports. Alan he and I have. He's had me on his show, and Alan's been on this show. Alan kind of got his start as part of the peanut gallery here. He's not here quite as often because he's a very busy, he's one of the busiest guys in the business. Plus, we all work real jobs too. So, but we appreciate Alan being with us from the beginning and getting his start and having some fun. I remember the day I brought Alan on for the first time. Wouldn't even come on camera. Yes, rivalry games, anything can happen. Ask Alabama. Wait a minute. Hold on. Time out. Yes, I agree. Anything can happen in a rivalry game. So we can throw records out. We can do whatever. But still, I mean, one team's much better than the other. And I'm not sure. I know you're not talking about last week's game because Alabama-Vanderbilt's not a rivalry. Their big rival with Georgia, they beat. Or maybe that's what you meant. Did they beat a better Georgia team though? So I'm not sure exactly where you're going there. But the overall comment is, I will agree with that comment. Rivalry games, anything can happen. Speaking of rivalry games, I'm going to throw this out there again. How much fun is it going to be if Army-Navy, which by the way is not a league game, even though they're playing in the same league, and it may be played after the conference championship, but still, Army-Navy could be a game that decides the group of 5 bid to the playoff. I think it's one of the coolest things of really a lot of cool stories out there. There's so much crap off the field, and I'm trying so hard to stay on the field, and I've done it for the most part, I think, for 6 weeks now. Except for a handful of stories we had to talk about. A lot of great stories. It's been a fun season, I think. Anybody, by the way, just look at the rankings, up and down. A lot of movement in the rankings, and we'll look at it in just a little bit. But teams falling in and out of the top 25, in and out of the top 10. Every game matters. All the people who think, you go to 12 teams, the regular season doesn't matter. Regular season, every week matters. Every week matters. I see James here. I'll get to you in a second, James. I know your team's got a big game this week against how come I can't read my writing, what I wrote down here? I know. Oh, put it in so I can't read it. I could just look here. I'm sure it's at night. If it's at LSU. Oh, Ole Miss. Of course, Ole Miss. Couldn't read my writing. Keep in mind, Alan says, no one gave us a chance last year. Plus, I don't trust Stark in a big game. Plus, they have Georgia next week. Well, those are all valid points. All valid points. And you cannot look ahead to anybody any week because anybody can beat anybody, it seems, on any given day, except Ohio State and Texas right now. But I will give you those points. Yes, you gave us. Did you cover last year? I think I bet the over that game last year, which has usually been a good bet in this game. It's usually over by halftime. This year could be different, but I think what was the over under? I said 50. Is that right? 50.5. I think that's an over bet for me. Does LSU have a chance in Death Valley against Ole Miss? I think you always got a chance in Death Valley, especially at night, which I believe this game is at night, correct? LSU really burst, I think, Ole Miss's bubble last year, if I'm not mistaken. I feel like that game was in Death Valley as well. I could be wrong. The years and the times all run together. Keith has a very difficult relationship with time. He's trying to get better. LSU's been a bit of a disappointment. 4-1 though. Up and down, keeping teams in games. Kelly, Kiffin. I like Kiffin a lot, but there's times where he's not the best, game day coach, if you will. He's a tremendous offensive mind. Not always the best game day coach. But is Brian Kelly? Ole Miss 3.5 on the road. I hate giving points on the road. I won't be betting this game, I can tell you right now. The over-under 62.5 would probably be the best bet in this game. I think this game, Ole Miss needs this. Ole Miss can't afford to lose, obviously. LSU can't either. I think the team that loses this is very, very likely to have a lot of trouble getting into that playoff. Click off Roku and reconnect. Believe it or not, I have another renegade. What is it? Everybody wants a piece of me, Mac. Linda. So I'm going to click off. You guys got to bear with me for 1 second while I do this. We're going to remove Roku, and then we're going to go back into it. Thank you, Linda. Sorry I didn't get to that sooner. You can let me know. Guys, there's a couple of people that approached me, Linda, that I may hook up with you. But, guys, if you're part of the network here, don't boot people off. Mac does a hard – Mac and Linda – not going to leave Linda out. These people are the hardest working people and that I know in this crazy podcast world that we do, that where the competition is incredible. And they do a tremendous job running that Roku network for national streaming sports. Get those channels downloaded. Go to your Roku app, go to your smart TV and download the national streaming sports channel. You got great content all day long. For some reason, they like to bump me, but not Linda and Mac, of course. They do a great job. Get those things downloaded. You see great. You see my giant head on a big screen TV. What's better than that? Thanks, Linda. Shannon, how are you? Shannon up in Amsterdam, New York. We always give a shout out to our local people. Good to see you tonight. Shannon used to work with my wife before my wife retired. I think Shannon's still there. I'm not sure. But welcome to the show tonight, Shannon. Shannon, and we always have to ask, because who's your team? A lot of Amsterdam folks are Notre Dame fans. I know that. Interested to see if Shannon says hi, and she did say hi, who her team is. Every time they play Auburn, the Tigers give them a game, no matter how bad they are. Alan, I have heard nothing but rationalizations out of you. Give me one. Oh my God. Everything you've mentioned is an intangible, basically. No tangible evidence in my mind that, and again, I'm not going to bet the game. I'm not going to bet the game. I'm probably going to bet the over as it stands right now. But that's another good rationalization. So again, 4-1. I would guess, this is just my personal opinion, of course, as all this is, Oklahoma is one of the worst teams in the top 25. Oklahoma, Michigan. I think they're one of the worst teams in the top 25. A lot of movement, by the way. 4 top 10 teams lose last week. We only mentioned a couple of them so far. I'll get back to your comments here in just a second. But Alabama, as we said, lost. Missouri lost. Who else lost in the top 10 last week? Gosh, help me out. How come I can't tell just by looking at the standings? I got it right here. Tennessee lost. Got one more team I'm missing. And 6 teams in the top 25, by the way. You got huge movers and shakers. Missouri drops 12 spots to number 21. Michigan drops 14 spots to 24. USC drops from 11 all the way out of the top 25. Trojans, and I know that probably breaks your heart, Danny. Louisville and UNLV all drop out. And who jumps in this week? SMU 5-1. Nice win at Louisville last week. Pittsburgh jumps in at 5-0. Very surprising 5-0 for Pittsburgh in the ACC. We'll kind of go around the conferences here in a little bit too. Oops, sorry about that, Alan. Army-Navy for the conference title, then the actual Army-Navy game itself would be fun to see. That's a great point, Alan. That could very well happen as we start looking. Both those teams, I'll look at that conference right now since it's right at the top of the standings anyway. Army's 4-0 in conference. Navy's 3-0. Tulane's 2-0. Charlotte 2-0. Hard to believe that some of these teams in the American have only played one conference game against 4 for Army. Now, look, I know Army and Navy aren't playing the most difficult schedules in the country. But both of them, especially Army, aren't just beating teams. They're just destroying them. Well coached. 5-0 is 5-0, and it's a great story. And these two teams were powerhouses in the 40s. For you guys who think that Army and Navy and the military schools were never competitive, Army and Navy regularly competed for national championships back in the 30s and the 40s. Then I would say it started to wane. It actually is. If I'm not mistaken, even into the early 60s, Navy had some teams that were competing for national championships. Right? Who does Army and Navy have left on their schedules? Good question, Rick. Let's look at Army. There'll be a lot of competition, league games here, I'm sure, plus Air Force for Army. They got UAB this week, which is a league game. They're at home. 12 o'clock on CBS. That should be a win. UAB is not very good. East Carolina at home. That should be a win. Air Force at home. Not very good. Troy Calhoun's a great coach. This is not one of his better teams. North Texas is a really good team on the road. That could be a loss. They got Notre Dame. That game is, where's that game being played? Because there's no way they're playing that game at, we'll have to look for that. That game's a home game for Army, but it's not at West Point. UTSA, which is tough, Texas San Antonio, and Navy, of course, on 12-14, which could be, as Alan said, the second time they play in a row if things continue to break the way that they are. I mean, there's a possibility of, 10-2 is not out of the question for Army. And it's not so much the record. Their record is going to be irrelevant about outside of the conference, whether they get in the playoff. This Notre Dame game, they need to play and stay in the game. Notre Dame really needs the style points. I'm not a big fan of running up against the military institutes. I don't care about running up scores other than that. It's an interesting schedule. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This team could easily go 10-2, 11-1, even 9-3. Still puts them in play potentially for the conference championship game. This is a league that will beat itself up potentially. It hasn't so far. And Navy's also going to have Notre Dame on the schedule. We know that. They've got Charlotte this week at home. That's a good matchup. That's an important game in the American. Charlotte's 2-0. Then they got Notre Dame, which will be irrelevant to the American Conference race. But playing well in this game will be important to Army and Navy. And Navy's got them a little bit sooner. They'll be at Rice. That should be a win. At South Florida. Better than you think. Tulane. That's going to be the toughest game besides Notre Dame, I think, on the schedule for Navy. Army dodges Tulane, which is a big bump for them, and they've got East Carolina as well. Again, I can easily see this team going 10-2, 9-3, both of them. Overall, one loss in a conference for both of them even could put them in the American Conference Championship, and then they got to be the highest ranked group of 5. Now, that's where the rub comes. I don't think either of these teams finish ahead of Boise in the rankings unless they go undefeated. In conference. They're not going undefeated. They're not beating Notre Dame. Neither one of these teams. If they did, it's going to be a huge upset, obviously. You lost the game by hit. I must be thinking about 2 years ago. Because the wheels fell off. And it must have been 2 years ago. The wheels fell off of, that's when it was. Because Ole Miss finished just out of the playoff. Would have finished either just in or just out of a 12-team playoff last year. I'm thinking about 2 years ago, James, when it happened in Death Valley. I think they really cleaned their clocks. And I think started a big downward spiral for Ole Miss that year. Told you, time and me don't get along. They do well still play Notre Dame. Listen, it's an uphill battle. I'm not saying these teams are front runners. Boise and let's see who else is ranked. Army and Navy aren't ranked yet, don't forget. Boise's already at number 17. And Boise's got some losable. Listen, that Mountain West is better than we think. They're going to have Vegas. I think Vegas is better with the quarterback they have now than the one that left, quite frankly. He played really well in spurts against Syracuse last week. They get Hawaii this week. That'll be a win. Vegas won't be easy. San Diego State, Nevada, San Jose, Wyoming, Oregon State. They've got one loss at Oregon on a last-second field goal, no less. This Boise State team could finish with one loss, and there'll be no chance for Army and Navy if that happens. I see the big head now. We're back on Roku. Welcome back, everybody, on Roku. Good to have you with us. If you got knocked off earlier, I apologize. And we've been talking a lot of inane college stuff here. Thank you, Linda, so much. Again, guys, get on that Roku train with the national streaming sports crew. Chris Fgrave, our Toronto native, our Toronto correspondent. Chris has moved out of Toronto, and I think he said well north of there. But Mike Singletary is 66 this year. Just a little older than me. Mike did come from Baylor. Baylor had some good teams. It's funny. Baylor's had in the old Southwest Conference when Grant Teef, we'll see if I'm right. Grant Teef was a coach there. Baylor had some really decent teams. They were never good year after year like Texas and Arkansas in the old Southwest Conference. But there were years that Baylor put it all together and were in the Cotton Bowl or competitive. More recently, they had really good teams under Art Briles, and we know what happened there with the total dysfunction of lack of institutional control and criminals from the football team running all over campus, doing unthinkable things. And they had some really good success under Matt Rule. So Baylor's had some good up and down history. Grant Teef, I want to say that it was Grant Teef when I was a kid back in the 70s. He had some good football teams at Baylor. Probably when Mike Singletary was there was one of them. We don't talk a lot about Baylor. Baylor's not very good right now. And I think their head coach is probably heading, Dave Aranda's probably heading for maybe the axe there. Let's take a quick swing around the conferences, shall we, real quick, since we were talking about it anyway. We talked about the American Conference already. The teams that were favored here, really, Memphis, UTSA, both 0-1 in conference, not over, but certainly not a great start when you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 teams ahead of you undefeated. I don't expect Charlotte to stay there. Tulane's really good. Tulane's probably the favorite to win this conference still, even with Army and Navy's hot starts. I root for good stories. I'll be rooting for Army and Navy to continue this run. Good evening, Kenny. Good to have you with us up on the mountain. Let's go to the ACC. Clemson and Miami look to be the class of this conference. Hurricanes are 6-0. They've been on the verge, though, a couple of times. Cam Ward's played really well. This is a game last week they had no business winning. I don't bet the teams that I like. I never bet the games, ever. I was tempted to bet the over in this game and just go to bed because I wasn't staying up to watch more than half of it. Cal's got a better football team than you think, but they fell behind by 25 in the third quarter, and they were very fortunate to get out alive again. The second or third time that's happened. Clemson has been coming back. Clemson's back in the top 10, folks, after getting destroyed and me destroying them and Dabo Sweeney. Clemson's run off 4 wins in a row in a very impressive fashion, not against the best caliber competition, but especially considering Florida State's situation. But they've done it in very impressive fashion. But outside of Clemson and Miami, SMU has played really good football. They're undefeated in conference. Virginia's a surprising 2-0. Nice win over Boston College last week. One of my 2 losers on the college day. Had to go 3-0 in the pros again last week to pull out a winning week. Usually the other way around for me. I do very well on Saturdays and struggle on Sundays. And Pittsburgh's 1-0 in conference, 5-0 overall. So those teams, and you can't count out Syracuse. We said this early. This would be an interesting conference. Not a great conference by any stretch of the imagination, but they're playing good football, and they're going to beat each other up, as you saw with Pittsburgh and Virginia. Virginia and Boston College, and Pittsburgh. I feel like Pittsburgh knocked off of one of the main competitors here last week. There's a lot of decent football teams here. There's not a national right now. Miami would be the best team. It's not me front running the Hurricanes, by the way. They still got to prove to me they can beat Clemson, regardless of good or bad. They've always had trouble getting by Clemson. And I've been fooled by this Miami Hurricane team before. So I'm saying they're the front runner to get into the national championship tournament, and they likely would have a bye in the first round and goes from there. Big 12, as we thought, pretty wide open, but what we didn't think, at least this announcer didn't think, that the big dogs in the conference right now would be Texas Tech with one of the worst defenses in the country. They're 3-0, 5-1 overall. BYU, undefeated, 5-0, universally picked to finish in the bottom half, if not last in this conference. Iowa State and Colorado. Colorado is about to get their, I think, they're about to turn tail. We'll see. And West Virginia's 2-0 in conference as well. Kansas State, while all the big favorites, all have got a loss. Kansas State, still alive, though. Oklahoma State's already got 2 losses in conference. Arizona's 1-1. Utah with a bad loss last week. Only 1 conference loss. They're 4-1 overall. But they're going to be without Cam Rising again, it looks like, for a bit. And Kansas, a very disappointing 0-3 in conference, 1-5 overall. The ceiling's just falling in on that team. The Big Ten, the biggest surprise, the Indiana Hoosiers. I said Kurt Cignetti, if I'm saying his name correctly, this guy goes and wins wherever he goes. He brings James Madison into FBS 1 and goes 1 loss last year. A bowl ineligible because of stupid NCAA rules. But this guy's got some chutzpah, and he's been around a while. He's 63 years old. He's not some young buck, which you would think Indiana would be hiring. But this team has won 6 straight. And he said at his introductory press conference, if you don't know me, look me up. I win. Google me. I love it. Ohio State is going to win this conference. It's a race to second place. Indiana could be there. Oregon could be there. Penn State could be there. Whoever it is going to lose to Ohio State. I don't think Washington's really in that race. Maybe they are. Maybe I'm underrating Washington, nice win against Michigan last week. Nebraska bounced back with a win last week. They're 2-1. I don't see Michigan as a contender. I really don't see Illinois or Rutgers. Rutgers doesn't play, if I'm not mistaken. Rutgers, they could finish second and get creamed. They could be the sixth or seventh best team in this conference and finish second. They don't play Ohio State, Michigan, I think, or Penn State. That's a big difference now without the conferences, right? Conference USA, Liberty at their standard 5-0, off to a great start. Sam Houston right there with them at 5-1, 2-0 in the conference. The independents, there are no independents really, except for Notre Dame. UConn and Mass are independents. Massachusetts is one of the worst teams in the country, and we knew that. Connecticut's a bit of a surprise at 4-2. Jim Mora having another good year after a down year last year. I'm going to come back to your comments here in a second. Let me just run through the rest of these conferences quickly, and we can discuss any of the conferences. We can discuss any of the games coming up or last week's games or anything you guys have in your mind. We got the Heisman to talk about. We'll look at the polls a little closer. Mid-American Conference, Eastern Michigan, Toledo. Toledo's a really good football team last year. One of the most underrated teams in the country in my mind. The Rockets, 4-1 again, 1-0 in conference. Buffalo off to a 3-2 start, 1-0 in the conference. To me, this is probably going to be Eastern Michigan or Toledo's. San Jose State with Coach Ken, the former coach at Navy for a long, long time. He's got that team turned around, and they're 4-1, 2-0 in the conference in the Mountain West. But Boise's 1-0, 4-1 overall. It's a really good football team. They put up 70 last week. And we talked about JD being maybe the front runner right now for the quarterback trophy we call the Heisman Trophy. We'll see. We can look at those candidates as well. Vegas still undefeated in the conference, although they lost their first game last week to Syracuse, a really fun game. San Diego State. Fresno State's not out of this, but I would say Boise State, UNLV, probably the front runners here. The Pac-12, pretty close race between the Beavers and the Cougars. Next year we have a real Big 12 again, real Pac-12 again. So, Danny, are we rooting for any of those teams, or are we going to just continue to root for UCLA, the westernmost team in the Big Ten? The Southeast Conference, probably the biggest surprise, maybe Texas A&M, 3-0. Beat up Missouri last week, number 9 in the country. At home, I picked Texas A&M last week. One loss in the first game to Notre Dame. This Aggie team really helps Notre Dame's ranking because Louisville's hurting it. Florida State's going to hurt it. USC looks like it could hurt it. This Texas A&M team keeps winning. That's good for Notre Dame and their chances. We'll talk about that in a second, and their chances to get in. Texas, I think, is still the front runner here. They've only played one league game. LSU with their second league game this week. Texas gets Oklahoma, as we said. Georgia's certainly not out of it. Arkansas, a bit of a surprise, playing really well, knocking off Tennessee last week. So, and by the way, Vanderbilt is currently fifth, sixth. They're 1-1 in the middle of the conference. The Sun Belt, Coastal Carolina, really still a good football team there. This is one of the few teams with divisions left. I like Coastal Carolina and UL Monroe to meet for this championship there. Let's get back to your comments as I've let you guys go on too far. Lindor hits a grand slam in the 6th. Kenny with the baseball update. You can give us the score if you like. 4-1 Mets. There it is, Danny. Thank you. College football show, but we like to keep track of really big stories going on, and the Mets are a big story here in the East anyway. We'll talk Major League Baseball update. Don't know what we're going to do. Danny, I'm kicking around. I don't have a guest this week for the 101. I was either going to do an encore or move the MLB update till 9 a.m. because I can't do it at 3 because I'm officiating my niece's wedding at 3:30. And I have to be there by 2:30 for pictures and things like that. So I'm considering either doing it on the fly sometime Friday afternoon before I have to go, which is going to be a little tough. Could do it tomorrow, late afternoon, maybe. Or I could replace for this week the one-on-one show with the Major League Baseball update. I don't want to skip the week. So I'm going to ask you guys, because Danny, you're usually there. Rick, you're usually there. Chris, you're usually there. Kenny, I said Kenny. Who else did I miss here? Well, whoever's here has got an opinion. I'll do it whenever you guys think it makes sense. And Linda, if you're still watching, I will make sure that my time slots are filled with content, no matter what. We just might move it around a little bit. Kenny says Oregon wins by 16 over Ohio State. Kenny's not a big Ohio State fan, in all fairness. I see no reason. I don't see any evidence to, again, we all have our opinions. Ohio State's played as well as anybody in the country up until now. Oregon has made it this far undefeated, but has been really a shell of the team that they were last year. A team that lost twice to Washington on their way to the national championship game. So I'm not sure. The Philly sports guy is on the bridge rail. Yeah, he might be. The Eagles are in trouble. Phillies are in trouble. Right? There you go. You got to give them the 16. What is that game, by the way? Let's take a quick look at that game. I think that game is also, what time is that game being played? That's got to be a night game, right? Got to be a night game. Yeah, 7 p.m. on Peacock. Sorry, Kenny. I do have Peacock because the people we bought our townhouse from, it was 1 year old when we bought it. They decided to sell it and move to Virginia. Well, we negotiated to keep all the TVs. They stayed signed into every single premium service that they had. Now, I didn't have Peacock, but I have Prime, I have Netflix, I have Paramount. I logged them out of all of those, locked myself in, didn't steal their service. But I did find out I have Peacock, Prime Peacock, because they're paying for it. They're still logged in. So I have been watching some football and some other things. My wife, I found out because my wife was watching this series. I'm like, that's on Peacock and it's Prime Peacock. How are you watching it? Well, we're logged in as our very nice former owner of our townhome. Anyway, I probably will watch that, but I digress. The line is Ohio State -3. Boy, I got a hard time not betting Ohio State in this game. MLB update in February is good. Kenny, Mr. Positivity, has brought that wonderful, I love baseball energy to, I love baseball and Ohio State energy to the show. Kenny doesn't. Danny, if you don't know who the steak sandwich guy is, that's your friend and mentor, Mark Mancini. In fairness to Mark, it's hard to send steak sandwiches through the mail or something. I'm not sure. Or a soda for that matter. I guess you could send the money to buy one. OSU versus Nike at 4:30 here. I love Western time. You know what? I would kill. No, I wouldn't kill. My brother lives in Utah, which is mountain time. And when I was out there, because we have an office in American Fork, which is about 30 minutes from where my brother is. And I had to go out there to work in that office last December. And I spent some time with my brother. And it was awesome to watch Thursday night football and go to bed at 9:30. The West Coast even better. When I was in Vegas for work, I watched a 7:00 Buffalo playoff game, Buffalo and Pittsburgh. I think it was a 7:00 start. I watched it at 4. Maybe it was a 4:00 start. It was something, and I watched it at 1 or the other. Either way, you can watch games, night games, and be in bed at freaking 9:30 off. I rock. Do I rock? I will always fill my time slots with content. Never leave it open. Unless somebody knocks me off, and then I don't even know. I'm wondering, Linda, if you're still here, because I know Robert comes on at 8:00, and if we go till 8:30, and I know we were going live till 8:30, and if Robert comes on at 8, I don't have any problem, just saying goodbye to the Roku audience at 8:00, if that's the case. I don't know, because I know Robert's on every night. I don't know if he's on every night on Roku or not. But it hit me when I was on his show, actually, a couple of weeks ago. So if you're still listening, let me know. Because if I am going to lose the audience, and I know sometimes I go long, let's say on the MLB update past 4:00 in the afternoon, if I'm getting bumped, I usually just say goodbye to the audience. Because I don't want to be that guy that bumps anybody. I hate that. Kenny pays his best homemade muffins. Pays his bet with homemade muffins with delicious. I think they are delicious, probably. My wife was in Kansas and I was in Syracuse working. And when I got to the apartment, she had dinner waiting for me. So getting a steak sandwich isn't hard. Well, that's true. Just how good is it? Good point. Well, I'm not trying to make excuses for Mark. Pay off your debts. If I owe anybody anything on this broadcast, please let me know so we can talk about it, please. Let's take a quick look. I want to look at the polls, and then we're going to look at the Heisman, and we'll look at the games. I'll do my picks live. We'll review the standings in the TGI Sports Talk college football standings, if you will. I somehow lost my poll rankings here. So the polls right now, Texas goes back into number 1. They get 52 of the 61 first place votes. Notre Dame gets the other 9. Both teams 5-0. It's very close. Oregon number 3. Penn State number 4. Both of them jumped 3 spots this week, with some of the teams losing in front of them. Georgia stayed at number 5. And as I predicted, Miami's number 6. They moved up 2 spots, even with their struggle with Cal. Listen, not easy to travel all the way across the country. So put that win in perspective. Miami still needs to play better to prove to me they're a national championship contender. Alabama drops 6 spots to number 7, which is, I'm almost certain, Danny, is where I said they would fall to. Is it fair that they're ranked below Georgia? No, but that's just the way these polls work, and that's the way these polls have always worked. Tennessee falls 4 spots to number 8. Ole Miss moves back up 3 spots and back into the top 10 at 9. Clemson back into the top 10, moving up 5 spots. These are some big movers here. Iowa State at 11, 5-0 again under Matt Campbell. 5 spots they're up. Notre Dame actually tied with Iowa State, up 3 spots. Right now, Kenny, again, this is not the official playoff poll. Very good chance Notre Dame's in the playoff as we speak today. LSU 4-1. They're up. They stay flat at 13. BYU moves up another 3 spots to number 14. A&M, maybe the biggest move of the week, up 10 spots to 15. Now 5-1. Big drop for Utah moves up 2 spots. My bad. They dropped last week. They're back up 2 spots to 16. Boise State keeps moving up to 17 from 21. Indiana up 5 to number 18. We got a tie at 19 with Oklahoma, as I mentioned before, and Kansas State trying to rebound from a bad loss to Tulane. Missouri with a horrible loss, big drop, 12 spots down to 21. Pittsburgh not ranked last week, up to number 22. Illinois up 1 spot to 23. Michigan down 14 spots to number 24. I said Michigan would not finish in the top 25. I stand by that. Don't know why I picked them to win that game at Washington last week. Stupid bet. Thinking defense travels in Washington is better than I really thought. Jed Finch is a really good football coach, former quarterback coach at New England. and led a resurrection at Arizona the last 3 years. And SMU goes to 25, falling out USC, Louisville, UNLV. Just missing, I shouldn't say just missing, but the next teams to jump in, theoretically, could be USC, Nebraska. Then you got Navy and Army. Navy and Army have been moving up. They still only got 43 and 33 votes apiece, but they're kind of moving up there. Even Vanderbilt's got some votes this week. Syracuse with 6 votes. Colorado's got 3 votes. Interesting stuff. Where are we here? I missed a couple. There we go. Wife. There we go. Yes, the Sharp Terrestrian is up next. So if we're losing the Roku audience, I assume he bumps me automatically, Linda, so I don't need to log out. If I do, what I want to make sure is I want to say goodbye to the audience. That's why I ask mostly. And if him coming on bumps me, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But this show I've always done for an hour and a half, and I can't cut it. There's weeks we get done at 8, but very few. Off season. Well, Paula says she'd like an apology for saying women's sports suck. I never said women's sports suck, first of all. Now, we can get into this conversation if you'd like. And I apologize, Paula. Not sure how that's relevant to college football, but all I said was men. I'm going to get myself in trouble again. That's okay. The best men in the world are going to beat the best women in the world all the time. And that's not I don't know why it's really not a knock. Now, I'm not one who tells you that the worst men's, and I think John McEnroe might say it, that the worst men's professional tennis player could beat the best women's player. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure that the worst men's golfer on a professional tour could beat the best women's, but the best against the best, it's always going to be that. And now he's laughing because he want to fire me up. That's a topic better for the Sunday stream of consciousness anyway. College football doesn't matter until the last 3 weeks. Every game matters. This is where I disagree with all these, and Kenny seems to fall into this. That's the only reason I'm bringing up Kenny, because I mentioned it earlier. The detractors of the 12-team playoff feel like the season doesn't matter, but it does. Every game matters. You're seeing teams. If it didn't matter, Notre Dame would have been eliminated after the Northern Illinois game. It'd be over. Their season would be over. But because they've rebounded and other teams in front of them have faltered, they're able to get in there. Yeah. Will the games matter more the last 3 weeks? Yeah, but they matter in September and October as well. I mean, you saw Clemson nearly fall out of the rankings and they're back to 10th. They couldn't do that. Again, these games all matter. You have to go out there and win and show your wares week in and week out. One bad showing, yeah, it's not going to hurt Georgia. You're right. Georgia having one bad game and losing to Alabama, even though they nearly lost to Kentucky 2 weeks before that, hasn't hurt them. Alabama's loss to Vanderbilt, I guarantee you, will impact them if they have a second loss somewhere. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. That's why a 12-team playoff is nice. If you get slides after beating a team, you can prove your worth in playoffs. Personally, I enjoyed watching Bama drop. Well, again, I'm a fan. There's not many teams I hate in college football. I just don't. I like good stories, and there's coaches at times that I've rooted against. I've rooted for Alabama. I've enjoyed watching Alabama over my lifetime. There have been some great stories there. And early on in my life, Bear Bryant and Alabama were a great story and a great program. They struggled for 2 decades after that. They had a couple of blips where they were okay with Gene Stallings and won a national championship, but they found Nick Saban, and you can say whatever you want about Alabama. You can say whatever you want about Nick Saban, but Nick Saban is the greatest college football coach of all time. I've said this since I've been doing this show, and people will throw back at me, and I'm not saying you are, Danny, but maybe you will when I say this. Yeah, well, he got to coach Alabama. Well, so did David Shula. So did Perkins. I don't know why his first name is escaping me. Former Giant coach and Colt receiver. Played at Alabama. Couldn't win. Du Bois. Francione. Probably saying his name wrong. Francione. Mike. I've said this before. Mike Price couldn't even get to the sideline because he couldn't get out of the strip club, or couldn't get to the strip club fast enough after his press conference. So just because you're at Alabama is not a free pass to winning national championships and contending for them year after year. You got to be a goddamn good football coach. Did I say goodbye to our Roku people good enough, you think? I said I was going to do it, then I didn't do it. If Robert hasn't started his show, we'll say goodbye to you Roku people now. Oh, Stanford always plays Notre Dame tough. They do. They beat, and Stanford went to Syracuse, and I'm not saying Syracuse is Notre Dame, by the way, but Stanford's first win in the ACC was a road win where they were supposed to get hammered against Syracuse. So Stanford will give Notre Dame a tough game, but listen, Notre Dame now they may control their own fate. They may, Kenny. I really thought even winning out, they weren't a guarantee, but they're already up to number 11. So if I use the AP poll, and again, remember, there'll be a totally different poll that'll start whenever, the end of October. Not sure when that, let's see if we can check it out. When's the first, hold on. First college football playoff poll. See if I can get a date. Yeah, I'm not getting what I want. 2024. I mean, you got to put it a year. Oh, maybe it's going to start. No, that can't be right. Oh, here we go. College football playoff rankings release dates. They'll be on Tuesdays again. They start November 5th. So the 5th, the 12th, the 19th, the 20th. December 8th is selection day. Okay, so 19th, 26th, the 3rd, and then the 8th is selection day. So a lot of time to make up ground here. If we started today, you'd have Texas, Oklahoma State, Miami. Again, I got to assume these best teams right now, I'm going to assume win the conferences, right? And they get the byes. And after that, it would be Iowa State. Those would be your top 4 teams and the teams with the byes. You got one more pick, automatic bid, and that's probably the 12th seeded team, which would be Boise State right now with the group of 5 selection. So I got 5 teams. I got 7 more to go. Oregon, Penn State, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Clemson. Right now you're out. Right now we're out, Kenny. And I'm rooting for Notre Dame. Right as we speak today, if we went by the rankings that I look in front of me, and again, they could be a little different. There could be some recency bias, and there could be some Notre Dame bias that brings them up in the polls. Do they want them in this playoff? Of course they do. Right now they'd be out. And I said all along that they're going to be going against a second team, either some combination of these scenarios. A second place team from the ACC, which is Clemson right now. A second place team from the Big 12, which could be BYU. They're just lurking behind Notre Dame. Or a sixth selection from the SEC. And right now they would have Texas, Georgia, Alabama. Can I count right? Tennessee, Ole Miss, fifth or sixth. So, and then you got after that LSU lurking right behind Notre Dame as well. Maybe even a third Big Ten team sneaks in there. That's unlikely right now. So a fifth or sixth team from the SEC, a second team from the ACC or the Big 12. This is who Notre Dame's going to be competing with. This is why every single game matters, Kenny. Every game. I mean, Notre Dame's fighting for its life. Notre Dame can't afford to go out there and stink it up and just barely get by Stanford, who they have this week. Right? And that game's at home. They got Georgia Tech at home. They need to win convincingly there. They got Navy at home. They need to win convincingly there. Florida State. Virginia's got now a tougher game than I thought it would be. Army, USC. I mean, right now they got one signature win against Texas A&M, which I didn't think would be their best win on their schedule, to be honest with you. Now it looks like it will be because of Florida State struggles and USC starting to struggle. We'll see. Louisville struggles. It's going to be close. Always good to see Alabama. I'm assuming you mean falling. Keith, when you get bumped, we lose. Just watching the Vic crap. Oh, and I refuse to support it. Well, that's fine. Danny, I know that, just to touch on that, I know that you reached out about that situation, and it is what it is. I have decided that I'm going to promote the Bet Us because it's good for the national streaming sports who have been good to me and helped again drive this show forward. Which I like to think I've helped them too, but again, that goes both ways. So I've decided I won't run the video, but I will just again mention Bet Us and the where to do it. So that's just me. That's just me. That's why we look forward to your Saturday show. Oh, that because the whole thing is on Saturday. Gotcha, Linda. This show does replay, by the way, Saturdays at 9 a.m. As well as tonight at midnight, if anybody's late owl. If you ever miss us live, Danny, you can watch us at 9 o'clock your time as well. You know, just to finish up on the Bet Us thing, look at everybody's got their own opinions. I'm not a big fan of that. I can't think of anything I'd never like. I didn't go buy a product because somebody endorsed it. It's just not who I am. And everybody's entitled to do what they want. It's just, I mean, again, there's people I don't like, right? But if there's a product I like, I'm not going to not buy it because of who supports it. But that's just me. Again, I'm not one to judge other people and what their own value system is. They can certainly do that. Danny's well within his rights to do that. But and I'm glad that Danny's here supporting our show. We have 3 losses. You have 3 losses before your last 3 games. It won't matter as well. Well, good point. Absolutely. Absolutely not. Keith, Bama will get in with another loss last year. I don't know about that. Well, actually, I do know about that. Because I thought Florida State should have been in last year. So I won't disagree with you last year. And I think when you're historically a good team, And I'll give you a comparison. Alabama would get preference over Miami. And Miami fans, I'm a Miami fan by marriage mostly, but I do root for the team now, and I wear their colors, and I wear them proudly. And, you know, we can put all the hate down there we want, and that's fine. But they like to think, Miami fans, for whatever reason, they think they're a blue blood. Alabama is a blue blood. USC, sorry, Danny, is a blue blood. Oklahoma is a blue blood. Miami's not a blue blood. You know, Miami had a great run from 82 to 2004, 20-year run where they were really great, competing for national championships and won a bunch. But they've been irrelevant since then, and they were irrelevant before that. Alabama, even when they were bad in those years between Bear Bryant and Saban, were always relevant, even when they were bad. Like Notre Dame. Notre Dame's relevant even when they're bad. And I will always maintain that college football, like every sport, and college football is no exception, is better when certain programs are good. College football is definitely better when Notre Dame's good. College football is definitely better when Alabama's good. And again, I think, remember, the reason I say 2 losses, Danny, gets them out, I'm not going to definitely get them out, puts them on the bubble, it's because of who one of those losses is to. Vanderbilt. If their 2 losses were to Ole Miss and Georgia, well, they're in for sure. But one of those losses to Vanderbilt. If Vanderbilt loses out, that loss gets worse and worse and worse. Now, Vanderbilt, and they've been fairly competitive in some of the games this year, at least, as I remember it. If Vanderbilt is still competitive, that loss doesn't look as bad, right? They win a couple more games in the SEC, especially against better teams. That loss doesn't hurt them as much. It does matter, though. So I was still trying to figure this. You have 3 losses before, or your last 3 games, it won't matter as well. If you have 3, I think we're talking about whether those last 3 games matter, right? Right. Well, that's to my point about every game mattering. This is a year where I think there's a very good chance nobody goes undefeated, which again helps the 2-loss teams. And I think we talked about this, right? There could be as many as 6 2-loss teams. So if I look at that right now, again, looking at the polls that we have today, and again, it's going to be hard because I can't look at the, each team's. I can look at some of these maybe, but I can't look at every team's. I got to get to my picks too. Teams with potential 2 losses that would get in. Notre Dame probably can't get in with another loss. I've said this to Kenny for a while. Notre Dame's probably got to have 1 loss. Right now, they got 1 loss, and they're still on the bubble. Yeah, some of those teams will lose in front of them, but they're not all going to lose enough to drop past them if they lose another game, to my point. I think if Notre Dame wins out, the way this polling looks now, Notre Dame would get in. Some of these teams, whether it's Ole Miss or Clemson or Miami or Alabama, I mean, I'm not sure they want to have 3 losses. Don't forget, they still got Tennessee that should beat Missouri, as bad as they looked against A&M last week. But they're at LSU. They got Auburn, which is, I think they'll beat them. This team could lose 3 games. And if they have 2 losses and then lose in a conference championship game, I'm guessing and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Danny, I'm thinking by your rationale, if they had 2 regular season losses and lost the conference championship game, they would get in with 3. I'm curious whether that would hold up in your special treatment category. And again, I'm not saying they don't get some. Notre Dame, there'll be some guys who will give Notre Dame a better ranking just because of they want them in there. Look at it, it's about money too. Kenny talks about it all the time. But I'm not saying they're going to put them in just to put them in. I think Notre Dame can't have 2 losses. I'm pretty sure they can't get in with 2 losses. Not with the losses they're going to. One of those losses, again, is going to be to not a very good football team. Oops, sorry. Georgia should have been in last year and not Alabama. I could make the argument Florida State should have been in last year and not either one of them. So, agreed. But Georgia lost. You can't. There's no way they could have taken. How are you going to take Georgia over Alabama when Alabama beat them in the conference championship? Did I forget that game? No. Georgia lost the SEC championship game to Alabama. No. I don't know why I'm doubting myself here. Yeah. I mean, there was no chance you're taking Georgia over Alabama when Alabama beat you in the conference championship game. That can't happen. If you do that, then you've got John DeLon, who I hope John's okay, by the way. We haven't seen John all year, so either he got tired of my all of us Northerners, or hopefully nothing bad happened to him. But John DeLon, that would be John DeLon's. There's your participation trophy syndrome. You're going to let the team in to finish second in the conference and leave the team to finish first out. Yeah, I can't buy that one. I will tell you, Florida State should have gone maybe over Alabama. Excellent show tonight. Everything you need to know, including Keith's opinion on everything. I got to get to these pictures real quick. Where's Danny? What's he got here? Yes was your point, Keith. Every game matters. Agreed. You thought that's where you're going. I completely agree. It's not just the last 3 weeks. I see. It's even more importantly to win out every week with the parity. Absolutely. I mean, we've seen it the last couple of weeks with teams just going up and down the rankings like crazy. And yeah, that's not to say those last 3 weeks aren't hugely important, because there is always going to be a recency bias, right? We've seen it year after year. Yeah, if you're going to lose, you're better off losing in week 1. Look at Texas A&M. Texas A&M lost in week 1 at home to Notre Dame. Texas A&M is going to have a chance to get in the position to be in a playoff. Now, they've got to continue to play really good football and beat better teams probably than they've beaten so far. So, I mean, that's why I say every game's important. As Danny says, with the parity and the way teams jump around, absolutely. Alabama won on a fluke play. Georgia was a 3-peat team. Georgia was on a 3. Georgia didn't 3-peat, though. Again, at the end of the day, it's who wins games. I don't know which one we're talking about. Last year, I don't remember the SEC championship game. No, they won on a fluke play last year. What was I don't know if I can see here. Nah, I thought I would see the score real quick in what I pulled up, but I can't. I'm not going to look up. I'm not going to try to find any more than I am right now. Oh, maybe, yeah. Well, let's give it to me. Hold on. All right, close game, 27-24. I mean, they both finished 12-1, and Alabama beat them head to head. I don't know how else I can view that except Alabama belongs in and Georgia didn't. And I think Kenny's got, or Danny's got a comment. FSU did everything correct last year and got screwed for who? Yep, Bama. No, I agree. Listen, that part I agree with. I won't argue that. I think I said it, that there probably was a little Bama bias last year. I really believe that if Travis Jordan hadn't gotten hurt, I always mix his name up. Hopefully it's Jordan Travis Jordan, whichever way you want it. Hadn't gotten hurt, they would have got in over Alabama. That's the only reason they didn't get in is their quarterback got hurt. It's a stupid reason to leave somebody out. You earned your way into the field and you take me out because of an injury. They won every game. I did everything they were asked to do, to Danny's point about doing everything correctly. They won every game put in front of them. And it was a pretty good schedule. That's silly. That's why there's no 4-game, well, not just why. Obviously, they made a decision before this. But Cincinnati getting in a couple of years ago, all of that led to the 12-team playoff. The SEC and the Big Ten will continue to try to get, their conference champion and 3 automatic bids and just wreck this thing probably. But so your point is right. FSU did everything correctly last year. Oh, you are getting some mid. You're Kenny, I got my little I got a little scratch pad here where I put little check marks. You're making up some ground tonight. Although Billy, without even being on a show, might actually be making a comeback, posting that picture with himself and Bill Parcells. And he was a head coach at Air Force for a year, so there's some relevance there. Let me get to last year. We got to get out of here in a few minutes, so let me get to the ESPN pick'em. All right, so here's the standings as we stand today. Let me get back in here because I got my picks in. I've wavered a few times on these picks this week, by the way. So here's how we stand right now. A couple people we don't know lead the way. We still got this ESPN fan picks one. I don't know who they are. I don't know if they watched the show or they just joined. They got 39 wins. The Sports Nut, I still don't know who that is. I feel like it's somebody viewing the show, and I just don't know where he is, or they are, excuse me. 38 wins. Beamer Ball, which is Neil Bush and Keith, are tied at 32. Paul Spada is right behind us at 30. Rick is the Dogs. He's got 29. Nobody's run away with us except the 2 anonymous guys. Poppy's Picks, which is Kenny at 22. And then we got Scott Kobe, who has disappeared and dropped off the face of the earth like the mad New Yorker, has just 20 wins. He has not played since quite a while ago. Nobody did well last week, as 4 winners out of 10 was the best score we had. Here's my picks. You guys can put some comments up. Heisman Trophy, we could go 5 minutes past if we have to, since we're off of Roku anyway. You can watch the show in full on Saturday mornings, remember, if you ever miss us. Okay, Washington at Iowa. I'm going to buck the trend here. The trend says 74% of the pickers are picking Washington. I'm going to take Iowa to find a way to score 10 points and win this game 10-7 or something. I'll take Iowa in this game at home. Wisconsin struggling a bit in Luke Fickell's second year, traveling to Rutgers. The surprising Scarlet Knights have done well. They did lose their first game on the road at Nebraska last week, but I like Greg Schiano's Scarlet Knights here. Penn State will go to USC. I've gone back and forth on this one. I was on USC, then I was off USC. I'm now on Penn State. If SC had been ranked in the top 10 or 15, I probably would have taken them because Ron Franklin can't beat those teams, quite frankly. And but I'll take Penn State, make Danny's day here over the Trojans. Cal will go to Pitt. Two surprising teams. Cal nearly knocks off the 7th-ranked Hurricanes, 6th-ranked now Hurricanes last week in a great game that I slept through. Pittsburgh is rising 5-0. Cal traveling all the way across the country. Not sure what that time that game is, but I will take Pittsburgh in this one. I'll take BYU, the surprising Cougars, 5-0. Take them over Arizona, who hasn't played terribly, but I will take them in this game. I'm going to buck the trend here. 91% on Washington State to beat Fresno State on the road. I'm going to buck the trend and take the Bulldogs at home. And I'm going to take Ohio State to win by 100. Not 100, I'm kidding. I'll probably bet this game. I don't know that I'll bet any of these other games. I will bet Texas, Oklahoma over, but I'm not betting any of these other games probably, which Texas, Oklahoma wasn't even on this card, was it? No, it wasn't. It's kind of weird. I'll take Ohio State to win by plenty against Oregon. I'm going to take Ole Miss on the road against LSU. That game's almost a 50-50 split as far as where they're picking them. Iowa State goes to West Virginia. Boy, I've gone back and forth here. Iowa State's moved up to number 11. Iowa State leading the pack, the Big 12, maybe a playoff team. West Virginia, a bit of a disappointment so far, to me anyway. I'm going to take the Mountaineers at home here. Just got a feeling we'll buck the trend there again. And I'll take Kansas State to continue their rebound against the Colorado Buffaloes. I think this is where Deion and the Buffaloes start to backtrack. So there's my picks. And we'll see who you guys have here. Mets advance. Phillies are out. Philly sports guy. Let's put up suicide watch out for the Philly sports guy tonight. Our condolences go out to him and all other Phillies fans. Not so much. Mets win. He's heard it here first or second. Unless you're watching the game, then you heard it first. Penn State, who thumped the University of Spoiled Children. I love, we have the best nicknames on this show. Rick has come up with some beauties for LeBron that we don't use here in college because he never played college. But Danny's done some pretty good stuff too. And we know he has no love for the the Trojans. Best bet Saturday on Wednesday. I love over. Yeah. I like, I think you're saying over in the Texas game. That's look, I think that's my best bet of the week too. The cigar box where we compete, we can bet, you can bet up to $300 for the week and $50 a game. I bet 3 college and 3 pros every week. Just got to go 4 for 6 and make money, and that's all I asked to do. I got off to a horrible start, by the way, and I'm back down to like a minus 100 or something. Had a horrible first 2-3 weeks. But we're on a 4-game winning streak now. A 4-week winning streak, I should say. So I think that's the best bet. Let's look quickly. We'll go a few minutes long here, guys, because I do want to look at some of the other scores. By the way, Army, as we said before, UAB is at Army. Navy's at off this week. Air Force is at Nevada, 2-1-4 teams. Air Force, very disappointing. Some other big games this week. Utah's at Arizona State. South Carolina at Alabama. South Carolina's played a couple of good games this year. I think they're probably going to get their clocks cleaned in Alabama this week. We talked about the Red River rivalry. I do like Texas to go over. I think Texas will win this game. Maybe they won't cover the 14. I know I was getting on Allen a little bit earlier. There's no way Oklahoma wins this game, but I do think they might score 25, and I think that Texas could score 40. So the over should be an easy bet. We talked about Penn State. We got Stanford at Notre Dame. Notre Dame still needing style points. Arizona goes to BYU, which I think we already talked about. Florida and Tennessee, interesting. Always a big matchup. Florida's at 3-2, a little bit bounced back a little bit from their bad start. Ole Miss at LSU. I do like Ole Miss. We talked about Colorado and Boise State. That top group of 5 team now visits Hawaii. What else do we have? Let's see if there's any other. I'll take that score. 37-28. That's 65. That's 15. Or am I wrong, Danny? Do you see? I'm shocked that the over-under isn't 60 in this game. I know Oklahoma's defense has been better, certainly better than its offense. Texas has given up some points. I really thought the over-under in this game be mid to high 50s minimum. I feel like 50 is a steal. I'd like to get my bet in now, but can't do that. Let me look at what other interesting matchups we might have here before we go. If you guys have some last-minute comments, put them up, and then we're going to wrap it up. Coastal Carolina, James Madison's a nice matchup this week, both 4-1 in the Sun Belt. Northwestern goes to Maryland. UNLV goes to Utah State. We'll see how Vegas bounces back from that first loss. Still no losses in the conference. Clemson will go to Wake Forest. Wake Forest back to 2-3. Got to get Larry Sorensen on here. He's been traveling a lot, but we'll get him in soon. The worst team in the country, in my mind, is Massachusetts in Division I. Missouri will go there and thump them. Washington and Iowa, we talked about. Georgia Tech and North Carolina. North Carolina, Mac Brown's got to be probably a dead man walking right now, don't we think? Toledo and Buffalo should be a good game in the MAC. I'm trying to see what else. Louisville, Virginia. Louisville's scrambling, needs a win badly. Virginia's a surprising 4-1, 2-0 in the ACC. Cincinnati and UCF, matchup of a couple of the teams that came in last year to the Big 12. I like UCF as an outsider here. It doesn't look like they're going to get it done with KJ Jefferson. I think they win here, though. Coach Ken in San Jose State will visit Colorado State. We don't care about that game. I shouldn't say I don't care about those games, right? Memphis will go to South Florida, an important American Conference game. Southern Miss at UL Monroe. Southern Miss is pretty bad this year, though. We talked about Washington State, Fresno State. UTS at the Rice. UTSA's Texas San Antonio. Bit of a disappointment at 2-3 and 0-1 in the American. Oregon State goes to Nevada. App State goes to Louisiana. Vanderbilt, off that big win, goes to Kentucky. This will be an interesting game. 1-1. I mean, they both have. They're 2-3 between the two of them in the SEC, both over 500 overall. Syracuse 4-1 gets NC State. NC State's 3-3, but they have been really trending the wrong way. Syracuse a 4-point favorite on the road. Could be a trap game for Syracuse, but I like the way they play. McCord has got full command of this offense. They're really impressive in coming back and winning that UNLV game last week, I thought. I think they might cover on the road. Danny's UCLA Bruins gets the up and down Minnesota Gophers. Kansas State plays Colorado, as we said, and Boise is at Boise's at Iowa. I took all of Keith's picks this week and won all the Sunday picks because Keith was 3-0 on Sunday and only 1-2 on Saturday. So good move. I have his mailing address. Chris makes some bucks and Keith keeps his knees. I knew I should have never given you that mailing address. And just so you know, Danny or Chris, I think you guys intertwined because Chris brought Danny into my world, and I thank him for that all the time because those guys have become very major contributors to the show. But I still have your cards all right here next to me, and we shuffle through them sometimes when I'm a little bored in a meeting or something. Danny says, right, 50.5, way too low. I agree. Hate to see that. And the Stankies up 2-0 in the fifth. We're going to go off and watch that game now. Guys, I appreciate your input tonight. We've had some fun. I hope you have. We appreciate your guys' participation all the time. Let me play this for you real quick before we go.
Keith Engle, the guy with the sports talk show. On the internet, he's the guy that we all know. If you love your sports, he's the guy for you. He has lots of shows on Roku. Keith Engle with the TGI Sports Talk Show.
I can't get enough of that song. Oh, guys, thanks so much for joining me tonight. Thanks for participating so emphatically, as you always do. We don't always agree, but we have fun, and we always leave friends because I don't take anything personal. We have a lot of fun. Everybody's opinions are worth something, including mine. Guys, have a good night. This show will repeat 9 o'clock. I'll repeat at midnight tonight, and then repeat Monday or Saturday at 9 a.m. on Roku. You guys have a great night. We'll see you on Friday at some point with the MLB update. Well, sometime between now and Friday, I guess we'll see you with the MLB update, and we'll do that Sunday as scheduled with the stream of consciousness. Keith Engle out. Bye-bye.